All right, we are back here on the podcast, and college basketball is finally coming back next Monday here. We're going to go ahead and get ready for the start of the college basketball season, one of the longest off seasons in sports. You go from April to November without getting this stuff. But back with me today, covers me the sport me from March Madness. Troy Mauriello is back with us. Troy, our college hoops guy, how are you?
I'm doing great, Mike, and yeah, longest off season probably in sports. I can't wait for next Monday for November 3rd for the college basketball season to kick off. I found myself on Friday night watching a Purdue and Kentucky exhibition game. That's what I was doing with my Friday night. My Saturday night was spent at the Garden watching St. John's in Michigan. So I'm ready to go. I wish we could start the season tomorrow.
Yeah, I like the trend more of the exhibitions now, at least get us in the flow. Because it's like I know preseason stuff is not great, but college basketball's never really had preseason. We only had really those secret scrimmages, which somehow
Mhm.
always leak out in terms of who actually wins these things. But like getting these games like is a natural evolution here. So that's the way the sport's going.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, we had Purdue and Kentucky on TV. We had Louisville and Kansas on TV. So some big time matchups on television. I saw BYU played North Carolina as well. The game that I was at, St. John's in Michigan, and they're high level games. Like the game that I watched last night. If you just dropped in there, you would have thought it was an Elite Eight game or something like that with the intensity that it was played. Yeah, like you said, no preseason, so for a lot of people, the first look that we get at these teams is the first game of the season. It's good, and it's good for the teams too to be getting these high level games that don't count, that you can work on some things, you can see what works, what doesn't work. So it's a good thing all around.
Yeah, for sure. And like I cannot wait for November 3rd, where we basically have round the clock college hoops starting. I think like if you're a junkie, you could like start watching 8 in the mornings. I think there's stuff going on that early.
Yeah, it's harkens back to the old days when ESPN used to do that, the 24-hour tip-off marathon, a game starting every 2 hours. Yeah, it's good to see, and it's good to I think most teams are opening up on that first day as well, and then we have some big time games in that first week as well, which is awesome because traditionally college has taken a couple weeks to get going until feast week really. It's good to have some big time matchups in that first week.
Yep, the first game of the day for Field of 68 on opening day, 8 o'clock in the morning, Winthrop and Queens University kick off the college basketball season.
I love it. I love it. That's for the true sickos out there. I can't say I'll be tuned in for that one, but I love that it's an option if you so choose.
Yeah, there's a lot of games opening here, and I feel like a very interesting season we have coming up here because obviously we had a lot of big names go out. We have big names coming in. We have a transfer portal shenanigans going on again. There's all sorts of crazy going on here. What are you looking forward to most this season, aside from the obvious if you're St. John's?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily looking forward to this, but it just seems like we kind of talked about it when we did our tournament coverage a couple of months ago. This gap between the power conferences and the mid majors, it continues to grow. You saw it last tournament with the domination of the power conference teams in March, and now we're seeing it again. I mean, it's a preseason poll, who knows? But the AP, there was one mid major ranked. There was only four other mid majors even got votes for the AP top 25. I think 18 of the top 25 were from the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the SEC. It's just the haves and the have-nots right now, and it's a shame to kind of see that great part of college basketball kind of being lost. But who knows in these eras with the transfer portal, where players can go wherever they want. So many teams, a coaching change happens and they have to fill 13 roster spots and they're going to poach from these mid majors and from these low majors, high major teams I'm talking about here. It just feels like that gap is continuing to grow as we head into another season. And I hope that there's some sort of something going down, with the people that make rules in this sport that can try to figure out a way to make that competitive balance a little bit better so that we're not seeing kind of those three or four super conferences just take over everything.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the player movement specifically I'm watching, especially like the transfer era here. And like we've seen like mid majors like get hammer where like they have to replace
Hmm
their whole team. Like
hmm
not even like for coaching change. They're talking about like just like
Yeah,
your average team. It's like, okay,
yeah.
like here comes like the A10 school to raid like the NEC schools for like their best players and so on
hmm
and so forth. Like
hmm
it's even hit the power conference level. I think Baylor has no returning players. I think their entire
Yep.
roster is new.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a coach that's been there forever. and doesn't have one returning player. A team that went to the NCAA tournament last year too. So, yeah, it's just I think we've talked about this before. There needs to be some sort of rules put in place because right now it's too chaotic in terms of the player movement. I mean, again, when a coach comes in and there's a coaching change, that makes sense. But yeah, you mentioned Baylor. That's a great example of a team that just, I mean, my team, St. John's, we returned three or four guys from last year. We're replacing. We have 10 new players, I think. Like it's
Yeah.
just every team you look. I mean, there's far fewer Purdue's that return so much of their starting lineup and so much of their scoring, and then there are, teams that just return really nothing.
Yeah. Couple of things I want to touch on here. Number one, there are more rumors about NCAA tournament expansion here. It sounds like not this year. It sounds like next year they're looking at going to 76 teams in the tournament. And I know Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, said, I feel bad for the snubs, was his big reasoning why we need to expand. I'm like, no, we don't. Like, we don't need to devalue the regular season any further than we already have. 68 is the perfect number. I don't need to have championship week mean absolutely nothing.
Mhm.
I don't need like every 500 team in the Big Ten or the SEC to make a tournament. Like if you're telling me, okay, we're going to reward the mids who win 27 games and lose the first game of their conference tournament, fine, I'm in.
Mhm.
We're not going to do that though. You and I
No.
both know this.
No, exactly. And we've had this conversation before. Listen, I've borderline accepted it at this point. I mean, how can you not with the wording that's being put out there by the NCAA? It's going to happen. I don't, maybe I've just come to terms with it. I don't hate it maybe as much because at this point, what can you do? As long as they don't mess with that Thursday to Sunday, I guess I'm fine with it. Whatever, it's gonna happen, so I can't, it's not, there's no reason to fight it. But like you said, it just continues to devalue the regular season when you're gonna and back to the point that I just made about these power conferences, you're gonna have teams that aren't even in their conference tournaments potentially be in the NCAA tournament. I mean, you're going to have these teams that are, 4 or 5 games under 500 in league play that then get, the 74th bid to the NCAA tournament. It makes no sense. And like you said, it devalues championship week. These teams now have nothing to play for. You could be a team that's 8-12 in the league, loses your first game, but you get in as team number 75. It just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. But I've accepted it. Just please don't mess with Thursday to Sunday at the very least. And it doesn't sound like they're going to do that. I would love, like you said, to have some sort of pathway to get more mid-major teams in. Teams that do so well in their conference regular season and then maybe get upset in their conference tournament. Teams that lose 3-4 games throughout the season and then have one bad game in their conference tournament. Maybe they figure out a way to get those teams in, but I don't think that's going to happen. That's not where the money is. The money is putting in the 13th team from the SEC or the 14th team from the Big Ten. So that's probably what we're going to end up doing.
Yeah, for sure. I will point out you are right. But what it sounds like is that they are trying to put these extra games on Tuesday and Wednesday. Talk about, I believe, like 8 games over those
Hmm.
2 days. They want to make sure you have 64 teams in
Hmm.
the first two rounds. So I think that makes sense. But
Hmm.
I think the thing you worry here is like number one, I feel like all four 16 seed games are going to be on that play-in tournament. So I think you're just gonna dump like all four 16s in there, which means half your games are
Hmm.
going to be games that if you're not a fan of the school, you're not going to really care about it in terms of like
Hmm.
casual interest here. They're going to
Yep.
play like 12 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday. And like I was going to sell these games, but to me, it's like, are we watering down the tournament too much? Because you're asking a lot of people to like take off, like some people who take off Thursday, Friday to watch these games. Like, you're going to go to your boss and say, okay, like I need Tuesday and Wednesday off too, because I need to watch the first four games.
Exactly. And I don't know. I don't think that the first four, I mean, I know the 16 seed games don't do great anyways, but like Virginia and Colorado State from a couple of years ago, that could not have been a very highly rated first four game for the NCAA. And like you said, it's not like you're going to have Duke and Kansas and Kentucky playing in these first four games. You're going to have the 13th seed in the Big Ten or the number 12 seed in the SEC. Like it's not going to be these marquee matchups. So from that standpoint, you're selling tickets to the games, great. Those fan bases will be energized and watching those games, great. But outside of that, doesn't it like it just feels like devaluing the tournament just to devalue the tournament.
Yep, we did this last year. Get excited for SMU Cincinnati, like at 3 o'clock in Dayton.
Exactly. And like that's not a TV draw. That's not a draw to the casual fan whatsoever. Me and you will be watching it because we love college basketball. But outside of that, like outside of the hardcore college basketball fans, and there's not that many of them. Like college basketball is a very big sport and like I root for my school and that's it. Outside of the 4 days in March and then the rest of the tournament, there's not a whole lot of people that watch college basketball casually. So I don't see what the draw is to add more of these games.
Yeah, I mean, like it's very MLB centric, where it's like sort of Spear was like,
Yeah,
okay, I watch my team. Maybe
exactly.
I'll watch the big game with the Dodgers or the
Hmm.
Yankees. Whereas college was like, I'll watch a Duke Carolina game. I'll watch Kentucky play a big game.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not like unless I'm a sicko, like I'm not tuning in at like 9:30 East on a Saturday night to watch Arizona and Gonzaga or something like
Yeah.
that.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
it's it's very similar to that, and you've seen baseball doing that with the wild card series now, and I know that those are pretty well rated for baseball, but how many casual people were watching Tigers and Guardians at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday for baseball this year too? It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, another fun story I want to touch on here is like, did you see this thing about the kid who played in the G League who got eligibility to play at Louisville?
Yeah, yeah. What a joke that is. You have a guy playing. I mean, and it's all around, by the way. There's so many European guys as well that are. I think Illinois has a 22-year-old freshman. I believe Louisville might have. There's another school that has one as well. Like we have 22-year-old freshmen right now playing in the NCAA, and this kid in the G League as well. You went professional. That should be cut and dry. You're playing professionally. You lose your amateur status. I do think maybe we've gone a little bit too far in terms of empowering players to where we're having now kids make the choice to not play college basketball a couple of years ago, now get a chance to play. It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me.
Yes, so to clarify the story here, this is London Johnson. He's a 21-year-old guard. He played 3 years in the G League, is committed to Louisville, and is given 2 years of eligibility by the NCAA. And Tom Izzo rightly flipped the shit about this. He said,
Hmm.
"What the hell are we doing here? Like, what rules am I supposed to be following with this?"
Hmm. Hmm. And those are like the Izzos, the Patinos, the Caliparis, like those are the type of guys that need to be speaking out against this stuff because the younger coaches, the younger generation of coaches, they might not want to say that. They don't want to ruffle too many feathers. They might not want to ruffle players' feathers who say, "Hey, that guy's, talking crap about a player. I don't want to go play for him." Like Izzo, Patino, Calipari, like they don't care about that stuff. They know they're going to get their players and they're going to work with whatever they have. So like those are going to need to be the guys that speak out against this stuff to hopefully, wake up people, wake up the public and wake up the NCAA to stop this stuff from happening.
Yeah, let's get to some of these local teams of interest here. It's usually preview wise, I try and go local more, and then a couple of big picture things. So start obviously with your St. John's team. Obviously, they bring back Zuby Ejiofor as their big returner. They go wild in the transfer portal. Ian Jackson comes in as one of the headliners. A big stack class. And the preseason poll at number 5. What are you looking forward to with St. John's this year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big year for them. I really do. They have Final Four. They have their sights set on the Final Four. If you look at the Vegas odds have them as a team that could be in play for a national title. Number 5 preseason, maybe a little bit high to be honest with you. I thought they would have probably been more towards the lower part of the top 10, but number 5 will take it. Highest preseason ranking in team history. Return Zuby Ejiofor. He's the Big East Player of the Year preseason. Zuby is Zuby. He's going to get his. They were really impressive yesterday. They played Michigan in the Garden. I was there. Awesome game. Went to overtime. This St. John's front court held its own. Was really, really impressive against a Michigan front court that I think could be, one of the top 2 or 3 in the country. And St. John's held their own. They bring in Bryce Hopkins, who through 2 exhibition games has looked not fully like the Bryce Hopkins that was one of the best players in the Big East a couple of years ago, but certainly, going towards that level. They bring in Dylan Mitchell from Cincinnati, who is just an athletic freak. It's a really good front court from St. John's. The question for them is going to be that backcourt. Like, is Ian Jackson going to run any point guard? Osiah Sellers has been the point guard. They have Dylan Darling, who could be a backup for them, but Darling hasn't really played much at all in terms of the high major level. Came from Idaho State. So, what can their backcourt give them? Because this front court is going to dominate especially in the Big East, they're going to dominate a lot of Big East teams just because of the size and the versatility that they have. But what do they get out of the backcourt in this non-conference? And then, once we get to March, what is the backcourt? That's the real question for St. John's.
Yeah, and I know the Big East looks like it's a down year for them. They only had two teams in the poll, and UConn and
Hmm.
St. John's, and I think actually Creighton was in the poll. No,
Creighton was too.
they
Yeah.
had
Mhm.
nobody else get votes, but like I think Patino did a good job stacking his non-conference to give his team tests. I mean, you got Alabama coming to the Garden on November 8th, the first Saturday of
Hmm.
the season. It's gonna be a lot of fun. You got the I forget what's the tournament they're in Thanksgiving week.
They're in the players, so they play Baylor and Iowa State in those
Yeah,
first two
yeah,
games in
those
Vegas.
two great games. Old Miss out of the SEC is a good test, and then they're
Hmm.
in the CBS Sports Classic for some reason, and they take on Kentucky, which is a game that Tito's been trying to get for years.
Yeah, yeah, it's listen, this is what they needed to do. And this is kind of the shame of what I was talking about earlier with the widening gap. Like you're even seeing the Big East start to get left behind a little bit, when compared to the Big 12, the SEC, and the Big 10. Just, you said three teams in the poll, not even anyone else got votes. I think they'd be lucky probably to send four to the tournament this year. That would be probably a really real win for them if they can get four in the tournament. If someone like Providence can step up, the bottom half of this league is pretty rough in terms of Butler, Xavier, Seton Hall. DePaul should be a little bit better, but still towards the bottom half. So St. John's isn't going to be challenged a whole lot from late December through March. At least I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong and the conference is better, or maybe St. John's isn't as good, but they really should win 15, 16 league games. The problem is then, are you ready for March? And I think that's why they scheduled so tough in the non-conference because I think Patino saw last year they just weren't ready for a team like Arkansas in the round of 32. The physicality and the athleticism of a team like Arkansas. I don't think it's any coincidence that they're playing Alabama and Ole Miss and Kentucky, SEC schools that have that athleticism, that have that toughness that can really shock you if you haven't seen it for a couple of months. So I think that's kind of the reason why they're playing such a tough non-conference schedule.
Yeah, so let's talk about UConn here, which is ahead of St. John's in the poll. They did get two first place votes in the poll, so definitely worth watching here. What like went out in the second round last year after winning back-to-back titles. There is a good nucleus for UConn. Obviously, Alex
Hmm.
Caraman is still there. They still have Solo Ball. They still have Karoma. They bring in
Hmm.
Malachi Smith from Dayton. That's a nice transfer addition. There's
Yeah.
some good freshmen coming in here. What are you looking for out of UConn?
Yeah, I think they're going to have a bounce back year. It's kind of very interesting as they were ahead of St. John's in the AP poll, and then they're behind St. John's in the Big East coaches poll. So maybe, in the Big East, looked at as behind St. John's, but then nationally, UConn a little bit ahead of St. John's for number four versus number five. But yeah, it's going to be a very good team. Solo Ball, what a jump for him in his second year with UConn, just an insane three-point shooter. Should have a great year again. I think Alex Caravan is probably a little bit overrated, to be honest with you, but he is that veteran presence for them, which is invaluable. And he is a really good. He's a good college player still. They lose Braylon Mullins, one of their star freshmen, to injury. It looks like it's going to be like 6 weeks though, so he'll at least be back for league play, and that gives him plenty of time to kind of ramp up and be okay for league play, and then for March. We kind of saw something similar with Liam McNeely last year, where he kind of battled injuries early. So UConn's no stranger to that. And you mentioned Malachi Smith. I think he's going to be like one of the X factor transfers that we see in the country. An awesome passer. He doesn't turn the ball over, and he's a great passer. And UConn really struggled with turnovers from their point guards last year. They were flipping point guards left and right. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see the impact that Malachi Smith has. Salas Demary is a really good transfer as well from Georgia. So I listen, UConn, they're going to be right there. It's going to be UConn and St. John's out of the Big East. I really think that there's a big drop off. Creighton's going to be good, but I think there's a big drop off between the first two teams in the Big East and the rest. They're going to be right there though. At the end of the year, you're going to look up. UConn's going to be probably a 1, 2, or 3 seed going into March, looking to win three titles in 4 years.
Yeah, you circle those two dates on the calendar for the Big East fans. Friday, February 6th at MSG, Saturday night on Big Fox. That's going to be a huge spot for that first game. Then the return trip Wednesday, February 25th to UConn, 7 p.m. I don't know what network that's probably. I feel like that's an FS1 special.
Yeah, just crazy scheduling to put UConn and St. John's on a Wednesday night, but that Friday night one is going to be awesome, especially. I mean, you get two teams that are, both top 10, top 15, Friday night in the Garden, possibly, 1 and 2 in the Big East at that point. That is going to just be absolutely insane at the Garden. I mean, the last year's game was really, really cool because you had a really good St. John's team and a decent UConn team, but UConn obviously in a down year for them, still made the tournament. This year, if you have two teams that play like they're supposed to play, that's going to be just an awesome meeting.
Yeah, and definitely, and keep an eye on the non-conference for we talk about
Yep.
St. John's non-conference. UConn, listen to some of these games, like 4 out of 5. BYU on a neutral floor. Arizona. Then they have get good game with Bryant. Then they have here Illinois at the Garden at Kansas. That's a hell of a run.
Yeah, it's just an insane schedule for them. I think they play Florida too in the Jimmy
They
V.
do.
Yeah, I believe. I mean, borderline like one of the best non-conference schedules I've ever seen anyone play, and I think again that's kind of along the lines of what St. John's is thinking in that like they're not going to get like UConn is not going to get challenged all that much in the Big East. There's 4 or 5 games probably that they have circled on their calendar. UConn, both meeting against St. John's at Creighton, of course. That seems like it's kind of been a tough place for UConn to play the last couple of years. So, like, there's not going to be a whole lot of times that you're challenged in the league. You almost have to now schedule your non-conference like you are a mid-major in that, you got to test yourself in the non-conference.
Yeah, there's also a game with Texas in there as well, like at St. Hartford. So
Yeah.
big strength there
hmm
here. So go the other two locals of note in the power conferences. Both not expected to do well with Rutgers wasting the Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper year, now projected
hmm
towards the bottom of the Big Ten. Seton Hall, very slow build under Shaw over there. So like it's frustrating. I feel like if you're a Seton Hall guy because they had the one good year and then they were
Yeah.
snubbed for the tournament and then he lost. Everybody's not be able to get it back here. Like, do you think
hmm
either of them has a shot here to be decent?
Probably not, to be honest with you. Rutgers, I mean, what a vibe shift for Rutgers. This
Yeah.
time last year, we were talking about them as a top 25 team, as a team that, had huge expectations to make the NCAA tournament and go on a run with those two freshmen. Now you look, they're picked towards the bottom of the Big Ten. They're still a very young team. I think they have 7 freshmen on the roster. They actually have some decent freshmen coming in, but they don't really return anything of note. So that then the Big Ten is just such a gauntlet that I can't see them competing very much. For Seton Hall, listen, I think they'll be better. They were picked last in the conference by a pretty wide margin. I don't think that they're getting, I mean, they can't, it's going to be very hard for them to be worse than they were last year, but they bring in some high major talent now. They have a kid from LSU, a kid from NC State, a kid from Oklahoma State. Like they have some real high guys who have at least played in high major games as opposed to last year when it just felt like it was no offense, but no names playing for them really. I can't see them being as bad. They're going to still be near the bottom of the Big East, but they should be a little bit improved just by the talent that they brought in. They brought in a top 50 freshman as well, so they should be okay, Seton Hall.
Yeah, they should be okay. I think they'll be more competitive than people think.
Exactly.
I
hmm
think they probably have a shot to get into like the top 8 of the Big East. I would say this one of those things where maybe you get in like if you I think the key for their season you want them to have any sort of at-large hope. You got to steal a game somewhere against one of these St. John's, UConn, Creighton trio. Like you got to do that to put yourself on that bubble mix.
For sure, yeah, and I would say probably their ceiling, like you said, is probably that like seventh, eighth in the conference, but it's just because we don't know how weak the floor of the Big East is going to be between Seton Hall, Butler, Xavier, even Georgetown, DePaul. Like we don't know how weak that kind of grouping is going to be. That maybe Seton Hall ends up being kind of the best of those teams. I don't think that they really have great NCAA tournament chances right now, but you never know. No one was really looking at them as a tournament team 2 years ago, and Shaheen did a great job. So I think he's a really good coach. He got dealt a really bad hand last year, winning the NIT and then seeing so many players leave and having to replace so many players was just a tough job for him. So I think he's a good coach, and I think that they'll have a decent year this year.
Yeah, I did check on Rutgers here. They're 17th out of 18 in the Big Ten preseason media poll, only ahead of Penn State.
Yeah, and it's just a young team, for Rutgers. Like I said, 7 freshmen coming in. They only returned 3 guys, and I think they lost their top 6 or 7 leading scorers from last year from a team that wasn't very good to begin with. So it's going to be an uphill climb for them as well, in the Big Ten especially.
Yeah, tuck some of the mids around the area here. They just for sake of completionism here, I would say for these guys. So 8-10 wise, I want to look at Fordham obviously because it feels like they've been so close.
Hmm.
They got so close under the towards the start of the Keith Ergo era.
Hmm.
And Kyle Neptune set them up well. They
Yeah.
never really finish it out here, but Lissette, they come in here dead last. So not fun time for Fordham, which again, like I feel like they missed their window.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Another team that a couple of years ago we were talking about them, like they kind of had not to the level of St. John's, but they had a lot of people in New York City talking about them in the Ergo years when they were kind of pushing for the NCAA tournament. Yeah, it does feel like they kind of missed that opportunity. They do have some money coming in. I know that they have a lot of big donors, so we'll see. But in year one, it's they it's a completely new team. I saw they have six international players coming in. So what do who knows what they're going to get? Pick to finish last in the A10 though. It could be a long year for them, but again, these are all completely new teams. The A10 has had a ton of turnover as well, so maybe they surprise some people, but for now, yeah, it's not looking very good for them.
It's not here. I think the interesting, like in the Mac angle here, like
Hmm.
I'm curious to see how the Iona experiment goes
Yeah.
with when they get rid of Tobin Anderson. A little controversially to some of the fan base here after
Hmm.
he takes them to the Mac final last year and they lose.
Hmm.
They bring in NBA assistant Dan Garrio as their head coach. They had the first Mac program to hire a GM in Craig
Hmm.
Moore. Their coaching staff has some interesting names on. Remember Raul Ramon, the pit guard?
No, no, I don't actually.
Yeah, he was like one of the pits like guards, like when on those teams that went deep in the NCAA tournament. Like he's
Yeah,
on their
okay.
coaching staff. They basically had the whole roster turnover. They bring one guy back from last year, but like
Mhm.
it's good to see. This is sort of a different approach here. Like we've seen some teams do this in terms of like we're going to go to the NBA assistant, hope we can get better player development from the guys we can get. So I wonder how that's going to work.
Yeah, yeah, and credit to Iona. I mean, it was a very controversial move, and it still is. We'll see if it ends up working out because I do think Tobin Anderson was building something there, and you had to give him more time than he had. But yeah, they are trying their best to kind of get with the times and trying their best to be like one of these high major teams, hiring a GM, hiring a guy with NBA connections. Year one, who knows how it's going to look, but you got to at least give them credit for trying to you know, move with this new era of college basketball. If you look at the metrics, actually, like Bartovic likes them to be, I believe, second in the MAC. So who knows? I think they were pick what six in the preseason poll. So who knows where they're going to end up? But the metrics do like them for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, and another fun non-conference note with them. First time in nearly 20 years they're playing Fordham this year.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
and they go to the Garden. They play St. John's, and that allegedly, if you believe Rick Pitino, is the most sold non-conference game for St. John's at the Garden right now is Iona. So that should be a really fun environment. I mean, St. John's obviously expected to win that game, but there's a lot of Iona fans, I'm sure, that are still feeling a little bit jaded by Rick Pitino. So should be kind of a cool environment at the Garden. I believe that game is like mid-December, so
Yep.
should be interesting.
December 13th, high noon on TNT or True TV. I haven't decided which
Yeah,
network yet.
yeah, that's a really good opportunity for Iona there.
Yeah, good exposure window there. And I don't necessarily buy Rick's theory as the highest selling game of all time. I mean, you got some good teams coming to the Garden this year. You got Alabama coming in here, who's been to the Final Four. Was it the Final Four 2 years ago?
Yeah, if you, I mean, I don't tend to believe everything that Rick Pitino says to the media. He seems like he kind of just says what he wants the media to believe, and maybe he was kind of just throwing a bone to Iona there. But yeah, he did say it at least though.
Yeah, he did say here, and we'll wrap up here. Couple of things here. National picture wise, like what teams catch your eye the most? I think for me, I'm fascinated by the BYU experiment, where
Hmm.
like they basically tried to go do the Texas Tech and football route and just buy as big a roster as they can. They had the
Hmm.
potential top pick in the in next year's draft with AJ Ditansa. They steal Rob Wright from Baylor. They have a
Hmm.
lot of interesting players on that team. They're a team I'm definitely intrigued to see if this works.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And kind of also gives me, I mean, they're more around their freshmen with Rob Wright coming in, but kind of gives me a little Rutgers vibes from last year, like big bringing in these huge recruits. And if you're not a fan of college basketball, you look at the rankings and you go, what? The number one or the number two recruit went to BYU? Where did that come from? Like kind of those similar vibes. So yeah, we'll see how they end up looking. The Big 12 is an absolute gauntlet. They're going to have to go up against Houston, Texas Tech, teams like that. So they're a very, very interesting team for sure. My pick in terms of just a team that I'm interested to see, a team that I think could end up having a really good year is Arkansas. The SEC is just a total buzzsaw. But you saw what they did down the stretch last year. They knocked my team out. They were, a complete collapse away from going to the Elite Eight. This is a team that got better as the year went on. They do lose Adu Thero and Boogie Fland, who are two of their best players from last year, but they have a couple of five-star freshmen coming in. They actually return the most minutes and the second most points in the SEC, which I'm a big retention guy. I think that the teams that return, bulk of their scoring and their minutes, they're going to be teams that are just better naturally because they don't have that, 2, 3 week period or maybe more of trying to get used to playing with each other at the start of the season. So I like this Arkansas team a lot. I think that they could be a team that challenges at the top of the SEC and is a Final Four contender as the year goes on. But the SEC is just so tough. Who knows?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Also fun with Duke lose Cooper Flag, but they get the Boozer boys, so
Mhm.
that's gonna be a fun spot for them.
Yeah, for sure. Duke's a very, very interesting team with the Boozer twins coming in, returning a good number of players, but not too many impact players. They don't really hit the transfer portal at all. It's going to be all freshmen for Duke once again. Last year that worked out well for them. I think recruiting freshmen is almost more of a crapshoot than recruiting transfers because you just don't even know if these guys can play to the level that they were recruited at. So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting for Duke. And I'll throw one more out for you. I saw Michigan last night in person. They were very impressive. Yaxel Lendeborg is awesome. I think he is a real contender to win Player of the Year nationally this season. Their front court is just really, really good, and I think Michigan sleeper team to not sleeper because they're a top 10 team, but a team that could win the Big Ten this year for sure.
Yeah, I think they're definitely fun to watch here. And on the freshman point, if you're pulling the kind of freshman that Duke is pulling, I don't think you have to worry as much.
I agree with you 100%. But sometimes you miss on those. But I do agree with you on that. When you recruit, like I've always said, if you can't get the top 15, 20 ranked guys in the country, it's not even really worth recruiting freshmen at this point because you just don't know. There is for sure a lot less uncertainty with the top 10, top 15, top 20 guys.
Yeah, and the problem with the freshman situation now, especially with the portal, is like if they don't like their playing time, they're just gonna bolt the first chance they get.
Exactly. Yeah, there is no more getting a four-star kid who's number 55, rated by by the experts, grooming him for a year, letting him, sit on the bench for a year, kind of learn his ways, and then, he explodes as a sophomore and turns into something big as a sophomore. That just doesn't happen anymore because that kid, I'm only playing 15 minutes a game. This SEC school has given me, 2 million to go play there. I'm gonna go play with them. Like there's just no more developing guys year after year, so it's just not even worth it really.
Yeah, it's not worth it really. And well, I have a little fun here. Do you want to hear some of the random schools that are playing in on games on opening day? Just
Oh,
to
I love this. Yes.
yeah, so let's have our list here. I'm going down the list some fun ones here. 11:30 a.m. on ESPN Plus. You can watch Arlington Baptist go to East Texas A&M.
Arlington. I'm assuming that's a Texas school. Arlington
I
Baptist.
would think so.
You can never be too sure though.
I don't know where this one is televised, but it might be somewhere worth watching here. The College of Biblical Studies taking on Prairie View A&M.
I like the College of Biblical Studies there. They're getting 22 and a half. I like them a lot in that
Yeah,
spot.
yeah. At 5 o'clock, Thomas of Maine takes on Stonehill
Okay, okay. Thomas of Maine, you said?
of Maine.
Okay, all right. I like that. All right.
6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. San Francisco is hosting UC Santa Cruz.
Okay. That's not too bad.
Six also on ESPN Plus, 6 o'clock. VMI hosts Johnson and Wales from North Carolina.
Oh, Johnson and Wales. Got a double trouble there.
Yeah. 6:30. Stony Brook, our friends down the road on Long Island. They're hosting Farmingdale State.
Oh, okay. Farmingdale State. I've at least heard of that one before, but maybe that's yeah, I've heard of them at least.
Yep. This one I've never heard of before. 7 p.m. on ESPN Plus. The Citadel is hosting Erskine.
You could give me 50 guesses what state that school plays in, and I think I would go like 0 for 50, or I would go 0 for 49
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah. 7 o'clock, the big battle between Florida International and Florida National.
Oh, there we go. Their rivalry game.
Yeah. Washington Adventist going to Norfolk State.
Love it.
DeSales at Davidson.
Okay.
Davidson, why are you buying this game?
Yeah, like I mean for some of these schools, yeah, but like Davidson, come on. You could play a real school.
San Francisco too is in that boat. I feel like you should.
Yeah, yeah, them
You should
too. They're a decent team, San Francisco.
yeah, it's like you should not be buying these games. They don't. They do nothing for you.
Exactly. Yeah, literally does nothing for you. Play that as an exhibition.
Yeah. Morehead State hosts Midway University.
Midway. Okay.
Another one we got to crush this. Liberty, who's always in the term, is hosting Kentucky Christian.
Yeah, yeah, Liberty, another one. You're a perennial tournament team. Like some of these big schools would probably want to play you. What are you playing them for?
Yeah. Kennesaw State hosts Payne.
Pain. Okay.
Paine. I don't know where it is.
Okay.
Jacksonville State hosts Oakwood.
Oakwood. Okay.
William and Mary hosts Georgian Court.
Georgian Court. Okay.
I think they're in New Jersey, actually. I've actually heard of them.
Oh, okay. I have not. Again, another school you could have given me 50 guesses. I would have taken all 50.
Longwood hosts Mary Baldwin.
Okay.
Lemoyne hosts SUNY Cobleskill.
I've heard of them because they're a SUNY school.
Yeah. Vermont, another one. Western New England. Vermont, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Vermont. You're always around the tournament. What are you doing? Come on.
Northern Kentucky hosts Cincinnati Claremont.
That's a rivalry game.
Yeah.
Two local teams.
Yeah. Florida Gulf Coast hosts New College of Florida. That's actually their name.
Well, listen, an expansion college, expansion team could be a historic game, their first game.
Yeah. This is just absurd at this point. Central Connecticut hosts Vermont State Johnson.
Love it.
McNeese hosts Champion Christian.
Oh, they're champions though, so who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Grambling at 7:30 hosts Huston Tillotson.
Okay.
And the last one of I've never heard of this school. Kansas City hosts Evangel.
Evangel. Okay, I love that. That next year we need to do a game, and you need to throw out some fake ones in there, and I'll have to guess if it's a real or a fake school.
Yeah, the only one, the most memorable of those I remember, I think was like a few years ago when the Academy of Art like beat like a Power Five team in an
Yeah.
in a regular
Yeah.
season game.
Yes, I do remember that.
Because I want to say it was like one of the California schools.
Yeah, yeah, I do remember that though.
Yeah,
The Academy of Art.
yeah. Because I'm trying to figure out who they beat because
Mhm.
that was a big deal at the time that they beat somebody who was at the D1 level.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You play those games, like God forbid you lose. It's national embarrassment for you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Here, speaking of games, here, I know as much as we love these schools we've never heard of. What are you looking forward to like in terms of non-conference games?
Yeah, a couple. I've got the Champions Classic, Kansas and Duke, Darren Peterson versus the Boozer Twins. Really, I saw a couple of Peterson highlights from that game that they played against Louisville. He looks awesome. I mean, listen, number one, number two recruit. He should be really, really good. Kentucky at Louisville. That's the first week of the season they play. Maybe loses a little bit of the juice, but still, that's the first week of the season. You got St. John's and Kentucky in Atlanta. Rick Pitino going back to play Kentucky. I tried to get tickets to that one. I could not. They were out insanely priced, as you would expect. And UConn and Florida in the Jimmy V Classic in December at the Garden. UConn playing a bunch of games at the Garden this year. That's two teams that could be national title contenders. So those are my four.
Yeah, a couple other ones I'll highlight here. Florida at Duke in the ACC SC Challenge, definitely a great spot. Duke, Michigan is gonna be a fun one, and that's it. That's a fun. That's in the February non-conference spot for
Mhm.
Duke, which is we
Mhm.
saw them do this last year. Great success.
Yeah, yeah, they played Illinois and they ran them out of the gym. So that's really really fun to be playing that game in what's it like mid-February probably.
February 21st,
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
towards the tail end of the Olympics here. And if you are not jazzed on watching some of our schools we just mentioned play on opening night, we do have a barn burner on opening night where we do have a top 25 matchup on the board as Florida goes on to play Arizona in Vegas.
Yeah, yeah, and I do feel like the scheduling has gotten better especially early. Like a couple of those games I mentioned were the first week of the season. My team plays Alabama as well. So like, yeah, like I do feel like the early, not feast week and everything like that, but that like first week or so of November, the scheduling has gotten better now as opposed to maybe 2, 3 years ago. So credit to these teams for playing some actual tough games early on.
Yeah, and our pals at Lindenwood, so I will add here, they have a very interesting second game of the season. They are playing the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy the first Thursday of the season.
That's awesome.
And that game is on ESPN Plus. You want to check out the Pharmacy Kids.
There you go. We're growing the game.
We are growing the game, Troy. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. People want to follow you on social. You're not going to do that.
Of course, yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at Troy Mauriello, Mauriello. I'm big into St. John's, so if you're a St. John's fan, definitely follow me on there. I might throw some other college basketball takes every once in a while, but yeah, if you're a St. John's fan, definitely check it out.